Hello and welcome back to anyone and everyone watching. Today is time for another episode of my Silly Season with Joe weekly news recap. This week was off to a slow start from a news standpoint, and understandably, as everyone was wrapping up their Christmas celebrations, but towards the end of the week, plenty of news stories started rolling in. Most notably this week was an update on Jimmie Johnson's return to NASCAR with Petty GMS, which we'll get to later on. But without any further ado, let's get right into our first Silly Season headline from this week. First up comes from the ARCA Series. As a fan-favorite driver, the Pizza Man, Brayton Laster, will be behind the wheel of the Mullins Racing number 03 machine for at least Daytona and Talladega. Last season, Laster came onto both the NASCAR and ARCA scene brand new, where in his ARCA debut at Daytona, he came home a very impressive 13th place before unfortunately getting caught up in a mid-race wreck at Talladega. That was all that was in store for him in ARCA, but a few months later, Reum Brothers Racing called him in to race their 33 truck in the Knoxville Dirt Race. Considering Reum Brothers is one of the most underfunded and slowest teams on the track, Laster did quite well to get a 27th place finish, only 3 laps down and ahead of 4 other running trucks. For 2023, he'll have sponsorship from JunkCarBlaster.com and AutoRepairVinStickers.com. And this year, I think he can absolutely score his first top 10 at one of the big tracks, as long as he can avoid all the guaranteed carnage. Also joining Laster for pre-race practice with Mullins Racing at Daytona, and potentially for the race, will be Dominion Raceway Modified winner Kayla Sirlis, and the defending Hickory Motor Speedway late model champion Landon Huffman. Our second and final update from the ARCA side of things comes from Rhett Jones Racing, who in 2022 fielded the number 30 car full-time for Amber Balkan. And let's just say she underperformed. In the ever-weakening competition in ARCA, she only managed to get 6 top 10s, but what really hurt her reputation as a driver was her 7 DNFs due to crashes, including 4 in a row at one point. And remember, the ARCA season's only 20 races, so with her 2 additional mechanical failure DNFs, she would nearly go behind the wall in half the races in 2022. Despite her full season sponsorship from Icon, the crash damage had to have exceeded what the team was getting paid, so the rumor right now is that she will not be coming back this season. But as to who will replace her, that's where it gets interesting. And this is all just speculation, of course, so don't be surprised if this does not come to be true. But there is growing discussion now that famous actor, most known for his role in Malcolm in the Middle and to me for voicing Chester in Fairly Odd Parents, Frankie Muniz will be taking over the ride. Yeah, for those who don't know, Muniz has a decent amount of experience racing sports cars, but with really no notable achievements. In 2021, he made a stock car racing debut in the SRL Pro Late Model Series, and here comes the ARCA connection with High Point Racing, a team that also competes regularly in the ARCA West Series. This year, in 2022, Muniz completed a test run for ARCA National and East Series team Fast Track Racing before going on to race in more late model events. So with all that said, would it really be that big of a stretch to put Frankie in a decent full-time ARCA car for 2023? I would say no matter what, as long as he takes care of the car, he'll be a lot better for the team than Amber Balkan. But we'll have to wait and see on that one. Also, that reminds me I need to clear up a bit from my last misinformation campaign. According to a comment from Ryan Vargas himself on my last Silly Season news episode, I can confirm that he will not be cup racing for the potential new team 3F Racing next season. There were rumors that either he or Justin Allgaier most likely would be due to their close connections to the team, but now we know for certain that it will not be Vargas. I have no idea where Vargas will land for 2023, but I hope he gets another opportunity somewhere in either Trucks or Xfinity for sure. Next up in the news comes from Alpha Prime Racing, who has announced yet another driver to their 2023 roster. So far, we know Jeffrey Earnhardt will be racing the full schedule in their number 44 car, Ryan Ellis will be part-time in their new 43 car, and Sage Cameron and Stephen Parsons will both be returning part-time, with their exact schedules and cars yet to be announced. But just this morning, the news broke that Leland Honeyman Jr. will be running select races in the 45 car. Not to be confused, which I often do with truck driver Caden Honeycutt, Leland Honeyman Jr. competed full-time in the ARCA East Series for Young's Motorsports this year, where he did a lot better than expected. In the rather pitiful 7-race schedule for the East Series now, Leland scored 3 top 5s and 5 top 10s, including a pole and a runner-up finish at Pensacola. And arguably even more impressive for a 17-year-old ARCA rookie, he wasn't involved in any on-track incidents, as his only DNF was due to electrical issues. Later on, he also made his Truck Series debut at Bristol for Young's Motorsports, where he brought home a respectable 29th place in one of the slowest trucks in the field. I think Leland has a lot of potential, and with his new opportunity, I would say that if he can get a top 10 or at least a couple of top 15s, he'll be able to prove he belongs in the sport. And now one last story before getting to the Jimmie Johnson updates. This isn't really silly season news, but it was reported that Ron Devine, former owner of the Cup team BK Racing, has been ordered to pay $31 million in regard to the bankruptcy of his team back in 2018. I don't think Ron was trying to scam anyone necessarily. I would just say he was in over his head with his Cup team, and it eventually just all fell back apart with sponsors falling through and all that. But finally, what most have probably been waiting for, this 7-time champ Jimmie Johnson's return to the sport. The relatively old news at this point is that Jimmie will be racing for Petty GMS in a third part-time car, but until recently the races he would be running and his car number have been up to much speculation. And now both these questions have more or less been answered, starting with his schedule. I don't believe anything has been officially announced yet, but on Eric Estep's Out of the Groove interview with Richard Petty, Petty may have let it slip that Johnson will be attempting 5 races, starting with the Daytona 500. His car will also be without a charter, meaning he'll have to qualify his way into the 500 and the other 4 races. And honestly, he could very well miss the 500. If he doesn't lock himself in on qualifying speed, which is really up in the air if he's able to or not, and then gets wrecked out in his qualifying duel, we could see his first ever Cup Series DNQ. As far as the rest of his races, considering in 2022, only the 36 chartered cars competed in the vast majority of the races, and the only potential new team as of now is 3F Racing, Johnson should be guaranteed an entry into every race following the 500. Also, he might have some type of champions or past Daytona 500 winners provisional to be locked into the Daytona 500. I'm honestly not sure what all the rules are on all that nowadays, we'll have to wait and see. And then for the other update this week, it was all but confirmed that Jimmie will be using the number 49 in all of his starts. As his iconic 48 is still under ownership of Hendrick Motorsports, there were a lot of theories about which number Jimmie would make his return with. Some suggested he might run the 44 or the 9, the 2 numbers that Richard Petty Motorsports used in the Cup Series throughout the 2010s, but in an interview with Forbes, Petty GMS president Mike Beam stated, quote, "Once we made the announcement with Jimmie, people started connecting the dots. 7 times 7 is 49. We have 2 7-time champions, and if you multiply 7 times 7, you get 49. That'd be a perfect number for our team with Richard Petty and Jimmie Johnson," end quote. So yeah, it really couldn't be more in your face that Jimmie Johnson will be racing the number 49 Chevrolet this coming season. As far as what results we can expect from the 49 team, I'm honestly going to guess 20th to 30th place runs, and maybe 1 or 2 top 15s. It was pretty clear he peaked back in 2017, and now after being completely out of the sport since the end of 2020, I certainly don't think he's going to do any better, and probably much worse actually. But yeah, that's all I've got to say for this week, so if you did enjoy this video, make sure to tap that like button and subscribe. We just hit 100 subscribers, so thank you all very much for that, it does mean a lot. I'll be uploading part 2 to my Most Forgotten Drivers of the 2020s project, so make sure to go check out part 1 if you have not already. But until then, peace out.